Okay, I think we just went live. So let me start that. I jumped the gun. I've got 5 different things going on in terms of the different platforms. And so let's start that one more time. Exciting day to be the Dodgers. Why is it exciting, Austin?
Casey, it's an exciting day to be a Los Angeles Dodger. As I just stated, and we're back actually live this time, the Los Angeles Dodgers had made a big signing today. They have signed Edwin Diaz to a 3-year, $69 million contract to address the biggest weakness of this club from the previous season. The bullpen was an area of weakness for the Dodgers in a year when they went out and won the World Series. They addressed that area of weakness, and the Dodgers are a whole lot better now.
So let me kind of dive into a little bit, and we'll get into a back and forth here of why I've been so strong ever since, since you crunched the numbers, Austin, and it was clear there is nobody that's even in this guy's ballpark in terms of, hey, it's a clear cut. Edwin Diaz is the best pitcher that's available. There is no debate to that. Now, if you would have come to me and said, hey, well, this is alternative right here, hey, we can kind of say, well, they're kind of close to even, so this makes, So it was clear that Kyle Tucker's the best offensive player in terms of position players. Once it became clear that Edwin Diaz was the best closer available left on the market, that's when I became very strong that the Dodgers were going to sign him and that they were going to get aggressive and go outside of their box. Now, they did get the 3 years, but it's the highest AAV ever. It signed for a reliever, I believe. So, they paid way more. This is way outside the Dodgers playbook. There's no doubt about it. So the reason why they have to do the reason why the Edwin Diaz thing had to happen, this was not even a debate beyond just the 3-year deal, and he came back to the Dodgers, as Chuck says a lot, in terms of the years that they gave him, was because Shohei Otani, when he signed, Shohei Otani has made this Dodgers organization so much money throughout the world. And then what he did with his contract by deferring all that money, making it to where the Dodgers could put all of these great players around him. You can't say, hey, Shohei, go make us all these billions of dollars, defer all this money so we can put the great players around you, and then go cheap whenever you have a chance to go get an Edwin Diaz who is at a position, maybe the biggest position of need, and he's the clear-cut best option at that position. You can't take that money from Shohei, let Shohei make all that money for you, let him defer all that money, and then say, sorry, Shohei, we're going to go cheap on the closer position, a position that, by the way, has almost cost us in the last 2 World Series. That just could not happen. That's why this signing had to happen. And to everybody's benefit, Diaz came back to 3 years.
Yeah, so let's address a couple of different things. First off, Casey and I had a back and forth discussion debating specifically Edwin Diaz on one of the most recent shows that we were able to do. And Casey very much was a little bit more on the pro Edwin Diaz side. And to Casey's credit, and he had a very strong argument about this on the show on Sunday, the Dodgers ultimately came to that realization with Edwin Diaz. And this was something that we addressed and talked about with our interview that we had with Fabian Ardea, which first off, for Fabian, it was a tremendous privilege to be able to interact with him during a week that was incredibly busy for him. So a huge thank you to that. One of the things that we had discussed during that and during previous shows was the dilemma that the Dodgers had, specifically between maximizing the window while also making sure that the window gets extended of contention. The Dodgers have Otani, they have Betts, and they have Freeman during some of their end of their prime years. And the Dodgers want to maximize on that while they still have them playing their best. But they also don't want to go ahead and risk the long-term ramifications of this club. Make sure that future Dodgers teams can also compete. What the signing of Edwin Diaz does, and this was something that was unexpected and a little bit of an additional variable, because what the terms that we were discussing and disagreeing upon was signing Edwin Diaz to like a 5-year, $100 million contract. What the Dodgers did, I think, was so good and smart, and to the point where I actually completely agree with the Dodgers in the signing, because they signed Edwin Diaz to not a 5-year deal, to a 3-year deal. which means the Dodgers are actually getting the best of both worlds. They are achieving both goals. They are going out and maximizing the window of Otani and Betts and Freeman, because for the next 3 seasons, while they still have them, even though Freddie Freeman's going to be around for 2 additional seasons, but while those guys are still at their very best, they're addressing an area that is the biggest weakness with a guy who's going to be in his age 32, 33, 34 seasons in Edwin Diaz. While you still expect him to be an elite closer, without signing him to a long-term deal and paying him $20 million a year for years 4 and 5, where there's going to be a lot of additional contracts on the books. I think the 3-year aspect for the Dodgers, while it does come with a high AAV, is super important because it both maximizes the window now while not having a super long-term deal that's going to prevent you to making moves in the future. I think this is the best of both worlds for the Dodgers. I was incredibly happy and surprised when it was revealed that the Dodgers signed Edwin Diaz to a 3-year contract. I think this is a win now for the Dodgers and a win for the future.
Dodgers are all the way in. Once they signed Shohei Otani, that changed the game. So, this is the best front office maybe in the history of baseball, okay? Because it's not just about – now, that's a big statement to make. I mean, there's been a lot of the Yankees of the early 2000s. So, we can debate that. I don't want to get into that debate. But certainly one of them in terms of what they've done. And so I don't want to take any credit away from Andrew Friedman, Brandon Gomes, Billy Gasparino. I don't want to take any credit away from them. But I'm just telling you, Austin, this goes 100% all the way back to when they signed Shohei Otani. When Shohei Otani signed, the ball game changed because, Shohei Otani is making the Dodgers more money than they will ever be able to spend. So by him doing that, that gives them the ability to say, you know what, I don't give a rat's ass what the AAV is, but I do care what the length of the contract is. So let's just offer an annual AAV that a guy like him can't change. That's number one. Number two is, by Otani deferring all that money, he made it very clear. That was a very clear statement to the front office. I expect you that at every turn, not like you said on a 10-year contract with Kyle Tucker, but if we can get a guy within reason of this window, I not only want you to, but what I've done for this organization by deferring all this money, I expect you to go get the Yoshinobu Yamamotos, the Tyler Glasnows, and now the Edwin Diaz's. Otherwise, I would not have deferred all of that money and made it available for you to be able to do that. So when Shohei Otani signed the Otani economy, these kinds of signings, I think without Otani and all that kind of deal, you probably go stick with your playbook. As much as I love the front office, I think you can go right back to giving Shohei Otani almost, and the signing of him, almost 100% of the credit in terms of the origins of why the Dodgers are able to be and why they are actually having to be so aggressive.
Yeah, the Dodgers are uniquely privileged to be able to make these types of signings consistently because of the revenue that they're able to generate with Shohei Otani. It allows them to be able to make these types of deals, large money contracts that on paper, just looking at the way that reliever contracts typically play out, are going to be at least a little bit of a negative balance. If you look at the past 10 years, since 2015, free agent reliever contracts, and this was going to be one of the arguments that I was looking at. I was looking at reliever contracts that stayed within an organization that teams paid at least $30 million. If you do a $9 million per Fangraphs WAR as an evaluation for there, all of the contracts over $30 million for relievers fell short of expectations for the value that they're able to pay out, which means paying relievers typically is not a great investment for you to be able to do for organizations. So for vast majority of other clubs, they look at the investment for free agent relievers, knowing how volatile that position is, and say, we are not in a position to where we can invest as heavily in this position. But what the Dodgers are able to do because of Shohei Otani and because this was such an area of need for the Dodgers is they have a unique financial situation. Otani unlocked that with his deferred contracts and with the expectation that he set for this club and with the amount of financial incentives that he's able to bring in. The Dodgers are paying 110% tax on this Edwin Diaz contract, which means it's not a $23 million per year annual value. You have to double that to talk about the actual financial value, but that does not matter to the Los Angeles Dodgers because of the money that they are bringing in with Shohei Otani. So then it was is Edwin Diaz the best player available, and is there going to be somebody that's going to be relatively close, which there could be some guys on the market that you would have argued would have been relatively close. Devin Williams was relatively close based on what he had a down year this past year, but some of the previous couple of years have been really solid. Edwin Diaz is better than a Devin Williams.
Hell yes, he is. It's clear. It's clear.
Some of the other guys that are on the market, Edwin Diaz, if you go ahead and compare Edwin Diaz to him, Edwin Diaz is a better player than those other relief pitchers, which ultimately led to the Dodgers to a situation, especially because Edwin Diaz could be signed on a 3-year deal. And you can go ahead, because of the financial powers that you have, give him the highest average annual value without sacrificing the years. I think that created a perfect storm to where I don't know if the Dodgers would have signed Edwin Diaz to a 4-year deal, but 3 years, I think that's right in the sweet spot, and giving him the highest AAV, average annual value, with the Shohei Otani revenue that's been able to bring in, ended up working out well for the Dodgers.
Yeah, and so I'm going to say it again. What's the number one way to maximize your profits?
Maximize your profits is winning, and as we mentioned before, winning the World Series.
100%. So if Edwin Diaz, I said even I would assign him to a 5-year contract, and here's why. If he helps you win 2 out of the next 5 World Series, he's going to pay for himself 10 times over, even if the last year and a half you have to eat the contract, if he helps you win a World Series. So if you feel like he is going to advance the ball in helping you win a World Series, in this case, significantly, because the Dodgers do not have a closer. I mean, you can say Tanner Scott, fine, but you can't say that based off of last year. Then at that point, it became a situation to where it's just a matter of, can we actually get this guy into a situation to where it makes somewhat of sense? The Dodgers had their cake and they got to eat it too. So it kind of reminds me of, whenever you go car shopping and the car salesman, the first thing they say is, hey, what do you want your monthly payment to be, right? And my first comment is, I don't give a rat's ass. I want you to tell me what the total cost is. What is the interest rate going to be? What are the costs of the loan that are built into it? I'll do the math from there, and I will see what the final price of what I'm paying for is. So for every year that you don't, what they'll try to do is get you like a 7-year loan and say, well, if you want to pay it off sooner, then you can just make extra payments. Well, who in the hell is going to do that, right? And so that's what kind of reminds me of what they're doing here with Diaz is, hey, let's just pay the guy a hell of a lot. Let's make our monthly payments a lot more, and then let's save money on the back end because at that point, if we won a couple of World Series and it's only a 3-year contract, we've made more money than we could have ever even spent on an Edwin Diaz type of guy. So the Dodgers definitely got their cake and they got to eat it too. And I'll tell you this is also another signal to the front office that they can't stop. You can't go get an Edwin Diaz. You can't go get a Tyler Glasnow. You can't go get these guys and have uncertainty in left field, a position that the Dodgers need. And I'm going to say it again, Austin, one of the reasons why the Dodgers needed to go outside their playbook for Edwin Diaz is because the closer spot damn near lost him the World Series. You know what also damn near lost him the World Series last year?
What's that?
Their offense. And so they have a duty to Shohei Otani, what he did with his contract, to the Dodgers fans who pay $25 for Mika Lotta's, $45 to Park, and all this kind of stuff. They owe it to everybody with the amount of money they're making to improve the offense from what we saw last year. They have to. They cannot stop right now.
Yeah, so we'll get into the office in just a second. Let's actually take a little bit of a moment to appreciate just how good Edwin Diaz is.
Oh, yeah.
Because I want to make sure that Dodgers fans understand the quality of player that Edwin Diaz is. And then we'll also talk about how he fits into this roster, perhaps what this means for the ramifications of this roster. And then we can go ahead and address the offense, which obviously is something that the Dodgers are looking to improve and try to find ways into making that more consistent to make this team as well-rounded as possible. So what I want to do with Edwin Diaz, I just want to read over the past 2 years. Reason I'm not going over the past 3 years, 2023, he missed the entire season, had an injury in the World Baseball Classic, missed all of 2023. His 2022 stats are ridiculous. 2022, he had a 50.2 strikeout percentage. Half of the batters that he faced struck out. Ridiculous type of stuff. Past 2 years. This is what I'm going to base off of Edwin Diaz and I'm going to make my basis of Edwin Diaz off of looking at the numbers that he had. Past 2 seasons, 2.48 ERA, a 2.22 SIERA, which is an ERA estimate. You look at his whiff percentage, it's about 40%. Strikeout percentage, 38.4%. This is higher than every single other Dodger if you compare them to the past couple of seasons, and it's not really close. It's by like a 6% difference. Walk percentage is about 8.5%, so you're talking about a 30% strikeout minus walk percentage. Insane with what he's been able to produce. Edwin Diaz gets swings and misses among the best in all of baseball. He is dominant against right-handed hitters, which is one of the things that the Dodgers needed the most. It's just a 211 weighted on-base average over the past 2 seasons against right-handed hitters. You look at the quality of contact, it is right aligned with what is expected to have happened. Edwin Diaz is the best closer in the game of baseball, and he's going to be closing games for the Los Angeles Dodgers. Absolutely insane with what he's able to do. Now let's talk a little bit about where this bullpen is and how he's able to fit in right now, because the bullpen, if you look at where things stand for the bullpen, the Dodgers currently, with the expectation, and this just came out within the past couple of days with the winter meetings. This actually came out after we had the meeting with Fabiano Ardaya. It sounds like Brusdar Graterol is going to be healthy, ready to go for the start of spring training. Let's just assume that is going to happen. If that is the case, 6 of the 8 bullpen spots for the Dodgers are filled up with the Edwin Diaz signing. You currently have guys with no minor league options of Anthony Banda, Edwin Diaz, Brusdar Graterol, Tanner Scott, Blake Trinan, and Alex Vesia. Adding Edwin Diaz with the certainty that he's able to provide at the back end of the bullpen really does help make that bullpen go from very much a question mark, which there's still some question marks with how some of these guys are going to be able to rebound, to a little bit more of a certainty. And now the Dodgers have 2 open spots to where they could either go with free agents, which isn't going to work quite as well if everybody is healthy because there's no optionability, or they have 2 additional spots for guys like a Robleski or a Jack Dreyer or a Ben Kasparius, Kyle Hurt, River Ryan, or any one of these guys, Will Klein, a bunch of different guys to be able to help fill in the mix. They have more depth. They got a lot better against right-handed hitters, and they got somebody who they can trust in the 9th inning of a game, which is something they have not had in the past 3 World Series the Dodgers have went on.
100%. And I'm going to say this again. I know I've said this, I don't know how many different times, and Andrew Friedman mentioned this in his interview with Kirsten Watson today. This is a real thing. Does not matter how Hall of Fame quality you are, does not matter what type of human being you are. When you win something, there's a certain amount of, oh, man, thank God we won that. It's relief, right? And with that relief comes relaxation. And with that relaxation, complacency is the wrong word, but I will say relaxation. So when the Dodgers went and got, say, a Roki Sasaki and a Blake Snell and a Tyler Glasnow, guys who had never won a World Series before, that created a situation to where it refilled that hunger, right? So now instead of looking around and going, you know what, we just want to go back to back with this group here. Now Freddie Freeman's going, man, I want to win one for Tyler Glasnow. I want to win one for Yoshinobu Yamamoto. I want to win one for Blake Snell. I want to win one for these guys. There's a whole different motivation to it. So the biggest part of this, don't let this part of it get lost. because Edwin Diaz is incredible. The results on the field should be absolutely phenomenal. The trumpet going off with his entrance is better than Johan Duran's, which I bitched and moaned about not getting him. Part of it because I wanted to hear his entrance into Dodger Stadium, right? So all of that is absolutely awesome. It's elite. It's going to be elite Major League Baseball entertainment value, no doubt about that. But maybe the biggest part of this for Edwin Diaz is it adds another elite player to the mix that is coming to the. Why do you think Edwin Diaz is coming to the Dodgers, Austin? What's the biggest reason?
Because he's elite.
Yes, but he wants to what?
He wants to win a World Series championship too.
If he wanted to get his bag, I think he could have got 5 years for however many $1 million, right? So he specifically is coming to the Dodgers because he knows he can win a World Series. That's adding another elite guy, just like you did with Blake Snell last year, Yamamoto, Roki Sasaki, Tyler Glasnow the year before that. That is coming over and adding to that hunger to keep you from getting complacent.
Yeah, I think that's 100% right. There has to be some sort of influx of new players that did not win the World Series or did not play a key role in winning the World Series previously to try to add to the mix, to try to reignite that fire, not just for the guys who hadn't won, but for the players surrounding him. Edwin Diaz absolutely does that. And you mentioned Johan Duran. One of the things that the Dodgers did not do at the trade deadline was give up high-level prospects to be able to go out and get a high leverage closer for several years. What the Dodgers are doing, yes, Edwin Diaz had the qualifying offer. So the Dodgers are losing out on their second and fifth highest draft pick, as well as $1 million in international bonus pool money. You know what that is not? That is not equivalent, at least in my eyes, to sending out, and I don't really like top 100 lists, but it's sending out some guys in the top 100 list to go out and acquire a closer, because the second and fifth highest draft pick, they could be somebody that could be really useful for the Dodgers, but they're not necessarily that exact price to go out and get, which means that signing Edwin Diaz, as far as prospect cost to be able to acquire, is cheaper than what it would have been to acquire somebody at the trade deadline.
Right.
And you are getting somebody that is arguably better than the guys that were acquired at the trade deadline. Mason Miller, who the San Diego Padres acquired, they traded one of the top guys in all of baseball in Leo DeVries to get a player like a Mason Miller. Edwin Diaz is comparable statistically to what Mason Miller is able to do on the field, and the Dodgers did not have to give up one of their top prospects in order to acquire Edwin Diaz. With the financial might that they have with Shohei Otani, all they had to do, yes, they did lose out on a couple of draft picks and international bonus pool money, which does matter to the Dodgers, but they were able to acquire Edwin Diaz without giving up one of their top prospects. And you know what they can do, especially with the talent that they have? The Dodgers have been strategic about finding ways to be able to bring in other prospects to the mix. They brought in Mike Sirota in the Gavin Lux trade. They added Adam Serenowski in their Hunter Fiducia trade. They were able to acquire guys via trade. Michael Busch, Rosario Hope, and Jackson Ferris. They can acquire talent in a lot of unique ways when you have a surplus of talent, which the Dodgers have a surplus of talent. Because of that, and because they know that they want to continue to find ways to add talent to this mix, to continue to, yes, add stuff to the farm system and continue to make that one of the top farm systems in the game of baseball. They're going to be creative on how they approach this, but they added a tremendous amount of talent with bringing in Edwin Diaz, and they didn't have to give up the prospect cost, I should say, to acquire a high leverage closer as what they would have during the trade deadline last year.
No doubt. That's a great point to make. Yes, you might talk about the qualifying offer and all that, but that's a hell of a lot cheaper than trading for a guy like an Edwin Diaz, because you're going to be giving up your damn farm to do that with.
Yeah,
right?
And it is something to where a lot of other teams, the reason why they give up a lot of their farm is because Johan Duran is a lot cheaper than an Edwin Diaz.
Yeah.
Mason Miller, a lot cheaper than an Edwin Diaz. You know what the Dodgers
and you get the right
about?
length of contract, something the Dodgers got anyways.
It's what the Dodgers got. They got the length, but they got a much higher price. But the Dodgers weren't worried about the higher price because of Shohei Otani and what he's able to bring in financially. So that is a unique aspect that the Dodgers almost exclusively have in comparison to some other teams, which gives them a little bit more of an advantage. But it is something that the Dodgers are taking full advantage of because they want to make sure they live up to what the promises they made to Shohei Otani.
When does spring training start? Damn it. I'm ready. Okay, so you know what else the Dodgers still have in place?
What's that?
All of their trade chips, okay? There's no way that you can sit on all of these wonderful outfielders, all of these major league ready pitchers like Kyle Hurd, River Ryan, Gavin Stone, Justin Robleski, Jack Dreyer, Ben Kasparius, all these guys that are major league ready that really don't have a defined role unless somebody gets hurt. There's no way you can sit on those guys, the 8, 9, 10 outfielders that are all going to play in the major league someday as long as they stay healthy, not for the Dodgers. There's no way you can sit on all the, and then also the second line of guys like a Jackson Ferris, a Jared Karros if he's healthy, a Peter Hubeck, guys like that. There's no way you can sit on all of these guys and just say, hey, you know what, we're just going to let them all time out. So the Dodgers still have all of their trade pieces, and so I would just be absolutely shocked if the Dodgers don't trade for a substantial upgrade in the outfield. Now, when I say you have to be aggressive, it's all in at this moment. I don't mean so reckless that, there's a difference between being aggressive and being reckless. What I kept trying to say about Edwin Diaz is within the window of Shohei Otani, Mookie Betts, and Freddie Freeman. To me, that's not reckless. That's being aggressive, right? But when you're talking about Kyle Tucker, hell, he's liable to be 5 or 6 years past that window. That to me is reckless. So when I say, hey, you got to keep your foot on the pedal here, you can't let up, you got to finish this, you got to go fix your offense because it damn sure almost lost the World Series for you last year the same way that your closer spot did. I'm not suggesting you'll get Kyle Tucker and just be stupid with a different contract. I'm saying you use your trade chips to go get the best trade target that you possibly can out there. You get to choose. You get to pick which one it is because you saved all your trade chips. Go get the guy that you think not only is the best player, but also the best fit. It reminds me of Oklahoma State football. They just hired a football coach, and they had several really great candidates available. They had a guy that was the South Florida coach. They also had a guy that was the University of North Texas coach. Well, they chose the University of North Texas coach. You know why? Because, hell, about half his players were from the state of Oklahoma. Half his coaches grew up in Oklahoma. He grew up in Texas. He's familiar with it. It was a fit, right? So the Dodgers saved all their trade chips to go get not only just the best player, but also the best fit in what they think this offense needs to add to be the best version of itself. I'll be shocked if they don't do that before spring training.
Yeah, I think that is the next direction that the Dodgers are able to go. If we look, just before we address the outfield in just a second, do we think that the Dodgers are done with their bullpen besides maybe a sign in Evan Phillips once spring training starts and be able to add him to this?
I'm good with sign Evan Phillips in spring training. I'm good with that. Yeah, you got all these guys coming back. I'm personally good with that.
I'm good with that too, and this is why I decided to go through all of the map, because 6 of the guys that are currently filling out the bullpen that you expect to be healthy going into spring training have 0 minor league options. You need a little bit of optionability in that bullpen. You need at least 2 spots for guys to be able to come up and down. Yes, guys are going to get injured, and you could use that as an argument to be able to add 1 additional arm to the mix if you want to do so. But there's not a need to add additional bullpen arm once the Dodgers made the decision to sign Edwin Diaz. So now the entire focus turns into fixing the offense. And I think what you stated is absolutely right. The Dodgers, because of the smart decisions that they have made over the course of years, have built up a farm system and a talent base that they can go ahead and acquire basically anybody via trade. So it's all about fit. And when it comes to the offense, and this is something that was interesting during our conversation that we had with Fabian Ardaya yesterday, which you can go ahead and check out that interview that we had here at Dodgers Dawgs, part of the Dodgers Daily Network. Please go check out that interview. He was gracious enough to be able to take the time.
He was.
When we were having our conversation with him, it sounds like the Dodgers are thinking a little bit more shorter term type deals, which actually Edwin Diaz kind of fits into that mix. I was thinking more 1 to 2 years shorter term deals. 3 years absolutely is a shorter term deal for Edwin Diaz. And once he was able to go to 3 years, I think the Dodgers were absolutely in the mix for Edwin Diaz.
Yeah, it's not a short term deal for relievers. But for what his market was going to be, that is definitely a short-term deal for him specifically.
Yeah, and that fits within the shorter-term window of maximizing Otani, Betts, and Freeman. When we're talking about the outfield, and in particular, there is obviously a bunch of guys that are coming up through the system that are going to be Rule 5 eligible after the 2027 season. So it sounds, at least from my perspective, based on the conversations that we had for him, perhaps the Dodgers are looking for that window, that 1 to 2 year type of guys to be able to help fit into the mix. Now, some of the guys that he had mentioned on the free agency aspect that he was hearing for the Dodgers, or as far as potential rumblings, guys like a Cody Bellinger and a Harrison Bader. I just want to address both of those players quick, and then we can talk about different fit in the trade aspect, because this is a free agency, just names that he had mentioned. Cody Bellinger is a guy that, if it was a shorter term deal, if the Dodgers could get in a 2 year type window, could fit a lot better with the Dodgers because of some of the versatility that he has in the outfield, being able to play different positions, has the ability to play well defensively. Bat to ball skills have gotten significantly better over the past couple of years. He's cut down his strikeouts dramatically from being in the mid 20s to being in the mid 10s, around 14-15% over the past couple of years. I'd be curious with Cody Bellinger, because personally, for me, and I've made this point pretty clear, I don't want to go long term for Cody, probably not more than 2 years for Bellinger, which probably is going to be too short of a contract for him, only because I'm concerned with some of the power numbers that he has, and he does not hit right-handed pitching as well as I would like for the Dodgers to be able to target. One of the other guys that Fabian Odiah had mentioned is Harrison Bader. If the Dodgers go out and acquire Harrison Bader, that means that the Dodgers are more all in on the run prevention type of strategy, because Harrison Bader is not a significant offensive addition. He had a good career year last year, but more is in the 90 WRC plus type of range. What he is, though, is a tremendous defensive center fielder. So if the Dodgers go out and get Harrison Bader, again, has to be within the 1 to 2 year type of deal range for the Dodgers if they were to go out and get Harrison Bader in free agency.
For that type of player, yeah. They would go 5 years, I think, for the right player, but not that player.
Not that type of player. Yes. And he would be defensive reassurance in center field, and would be more of we have tremendous amount of great pitchers. Yeah. We want to make sure that we are providing them with the best defense possible that we can. Harrison Bader would go a long way towards that. Those were the two names that were mentioned on the free agency, at least right now. If you're talking about 1 to 2 year type of range, free agency, you're also mentioning somebody like Mike Yastrzemski, who potentially could fit. But if you're talking about maximizing the window, I don't know if he's the best fit. It fits uniquely well because of his ability to hit right-handed pitching, plays
Dodgers
well
fans,
defensively.
I don't think Dodgers fans would give him a chance after Conforto.
That is the difficult part. But I'm talking about short-term deals.
I get
on
it.
the free agency.
He actually makes sense if you go, it's like there's things that you can put on paper and you go, on paper this makes sense, but the execution part of Yastrzemski, Dodgers fans would have so many reservations.
Okay, so then it comes down to, do you trust the front office to be able to go ahead and make the right call and make the right decisions as an organization? I think the front office has built up enough trust in that. Yeah. Those are just short-term
They didn't
options.
with Conforto. I wouldn't trust him in that situation. That's what I'm saying.
Yep, and so then those are kind of the options of what you're looking at on the free agency aspect if it is a more shorter term type of deal. Now, if Kyle Tucker's market completely crashes, as we saw with Edwin Diaz, the Dodgers could absolutely capitalize, and he is the best free agent outfielder available. But then you turn the market into the trade aspect. And this is when we talk about some of the shorter term guys that we had been talking about over the past little bit. Guys like a Lars Nootbaar or a Steven Kwan or a Brendan Donovan to play more second base, left field, or a Jarren Duran, or a lot of these type of guys that really fit into the window. The Dodgers have a unique ability to be able to go out and acquire any one of those options that they believe is going to significantly improve the team as best as they possibly can.
Yeah. I just don't think Harrison Bader's offensive enough. I mean, the Dodgers, I think to me, the only reason, I know the defense wasn't great, but I think you can pinpoint that to Teo Hernandez, which there's a certain amount of, it's Teo. And then, by the way, Teo came through big time in the World Series by going and grabbing that ball, throwing a perfect relay to to Tommy Edman. So I can make that case too. And then I could also say, I think if you move him to left field, maybe you can hide him a touch because, like you say, those throws aren't quite as long and that kind of deal. And so Michael Conforto is the other part of that defensive equation that's no longer there. So I think really not the only reason why you go add an outfielder, but I think 98% of the reason why you go get an outfielder is to improve your offense. It was your offense that damn near lost you the World Series last year. Your defense was fine. Andy Pages saved your ass in center field. So if you want to say, hey, we need to go upgrade center field, well, I'm not going to push back on that. But what I am going to say with my pushback is, well, I don't disagree that we need to move Andy Pages to right field, get a defensive center fielder like a Varsho. We saw how good he is. You're not going to get him, obviously, but that would make the case for like a Harrison Bader or Jaron Duran, something like that. My pushback's going to be, okay, that would be nice to upgrade your defense in center field, moving Pages to right field, which would upgrade your defense in right field. But that's not solving the problem that almost lost you the World Series last year, and that is a crappy offense, okay? So the main and almost entire reason why you go get an outfielder is to make your offense more foolproof, make it more drought-proof, and just overall make it not a better offense, but a substantially better offense. That's the outfielder you need to go get. You need to go get the outfielder that makes you a much better offense, not a better defense, in my opinion.
Yeah, and that is the big question with the Dodgers potentially going out and getting Harrison Bader. If you look over the past three, I know he had a good season this past year, but the past 3 seasons, it's a 95 WRC plus, 251, 306 on base percentage, 395. You look at his expected weighted on base average is even worse than that. He's not great against righties or lefties. All he would be a defensive upgrade. So that's the same profile. I know there's been some rumblings and some rumors connecting the Dodgers to potentially the Astros, Jake Myers. It's the exact same profile for Jake Myers of the Houston Astros as it is with Harrison Bader. If the Dodgers were to go out and get somebody like a Harrison Bader, it's almost a expectation or perhaps something that the Dodgers should do. And perhaps this could be the strategy that the Dodgers go out and take, even though I don't think this is the math starts to get really crowded on the Dodgers position player side, is if they were to go out and get somebody like a Harrison Bader to shore up the defense in center field, perhaps they could look to somebody like a Brendan Donovan as well. Could you see a Harrison Bader signing during the offseason, because that's a free agent signing that the Dodgers could go out and make, and then a trade for somebody perhaps like a Brendan Donovan to take over the reins at second base? What that would do is that would crowd out a Tommy Edman to be a utility / bench role / a go
we don't even know how healthy
second base
he is.
against second baseman against left-handed hitters. The thing about the math with that, where that could get complicated, is that could potentially crowd out a Kike Hernandez. That would almost certainly crowd out guys like an Alex Freeland and a Hae-Sung Kim from the mix. But if that's the direction that the Dodgers want to go, perhaps that's fixing your defense a little bit better while also being able to add an additional batch to the mix. I'm not saying that's what the Dodgers are going to go down, nor is that the likely path. But if they were to go to get a Harrison Bader, they are either going down the path where they're trying to make their defense and they identified as that as the biggest weakness, or they're looking to try to add some additional piece probably at second base, or looking to trade some of the pieces, perhaps like some of the rumblings of Teoscar Hernandez have been there, even though the GM, Brandon Gomes, kind of shot that down during the winter meetings yesterday.
Yeah, I just think offense is the way to go. So if I were to say to you, we're in the war room and we say, Austin, our offense damn near got us beat last year. We got to upgrade this. What outfielder do we need to go get? Who does it have? Who would it be? And it can't be Kyle Tucker. I'm not going stupid on this. I'm sorry. I know that my whole argument is, hey, you got to be aggressive because Otani but Otani didn't do the 10-year deal, so you can't win 3 years from now because it's just too stupid of a contract. Now, if he may come back to, maybe say a 6-year deal, you might. I don't know where the range would be for the Dodgers to consider that. So let me say this. No Kyle Tucker. He's going to be out of the year range that I would be comfortable with. So it can't be Kyle Tucker. I need to substantially upgrade this offense. Who does it need to be, Austin? You're the statistician.
If you're looking for the most upside with the offense, it's probably either a Byron Buxton, who all around has been a tremendous offensive player, but strikes out a lot. Question marks about the fit. If you're just looking for offensive upside, if you're looking for a guy that perhaps could be really well and fit into this offense and hit well against right-handed pitching, but struggles against left-handed pitching, but the upside against righties is very much there, it would probably be a Jarren Duran. But again, there's swing and miss concerns about both of those guys, so you can have question marks about their fit. And then there's kind of a clumping that there. I don't think there's a huge, massive difference in the offensive execution or overall value that they're going to be able to provide from guys like a Stephen Kwan, Lars Nootbaar, and Brendan Donovan, all going to be relatively around the same mix. Each have different strengths to their overall profile, but all good, solid outfielders to add to the mix.
You're filibustering me. Who do you want? Tell me the statistician. Who do you want?
How am I supposed to give you a direct answer with all of that? There's a lot of different options, and it depends on what your overall criteria actually is for what you are looking for. You can't just say, "Oh, go out and get this specific player." There has to be parameters around that. Am I looking for somebody that has a higher walk percentage? Am I looking for somebody that's lower on
I'm
the
leaving all that in your
hands.
What do you think that this Dodgers offense needs an infusion of? What do you think will actually substantially make this Dodgers offense better? Who is that guy? Who would that guy be? To me, it'd be Stephen Kwan or Jarren Duran.
To me, I'm leaning a little bit more perhaps towards a Brendan Donovan, but because I think some of the and it could be a Brendan Donovan / a Jarren Duran is kind of where I'm leaning on that, only because I've identified as one of the main weaknesses on this club being hitting against right-handed pitching. I need somebody that's going to hit really well against right-handed pitching. Both of those guys hit against right-handed pitching really well. Brendan Donovan the past 3 seasons, 131 WRC plus against righties. Jarren Duran 138 WRC plus against righties. I think Brendan Donovan fits well with this roster, being able to mix and match a whole bunch of different guys and allows different opportunities depending on who's able to play well between a Ward, a Freeland, and Kim to fit into this mix, and I think can help balance out this roster really well. Whereas with a Jarren Duran, I think there's a little bit more defensive upside that he's able to provide. So but with Brendan Donovan, there's a little bit more contact to be able to add to the mix, which means that I don't have a strong preference either way. Which one of those guys could potentially be
busting your ass, Brubaker. You know,
I know. I know. Both of those guys are really solid, and all of these different guys would be great additions to the Dodgers if they're able to add them.
I'm getting ready to go way out into the weeds, and I'm probably getting ready to get it. What the hell are you talking about by all you wonderful Dodgers dogs out there? Okay, so let me put on a big old tinfoil hat and let me throw this out there, okay? What about getting Jarren Duran and Stephen Kwan, then trading Teo Hernandez? So now you have Jarren Duran in center, you have Stephen Kwan in left, Andy Pages in right, and you've gotten rid of the clunkiness of Teo Hernandez.
So the biggest downside to that, and one of the reasons why you could push back on that, is that takes away from the power right-handed bat element of this Dodgers lineup.
Then subtract Jarren Duran for Byron Buxton.
What was that?
Subtract, and then replace Jarren Duran with Byron Buxton.
Okay, so then that's helping to supplement that mix, and that totally could be part of the
Byron
equation.
Buxton and Stephen Kwan, you acquire Byron Buxton, Stephen Kwan, you trade Teo Hernandez.
Here's the complicated factor with that is Teoscar Hernandez. I don't know the actual value of where teams have him with 2 years and $40-something million left on his contract. With him being a DH only, it might be something where there's not a whole lot of trade value that you would have with a Teoscar Hernandez to go out and acquire a Byron Buxton and a Stephen Kwan or a Jarren Duran is going to be incredibly expensive to be able to go out and get both of them. Plus the value of what you're trading away with Teoscar Hernandez or trying to get back with Teo, I don't think is going to be much really at all. So it's a question of, do you want to spend the prospect capital to be able to add 2 guys to the mix to make up for some of the clunkiness of Teoscar Hernandez? I just don't see the Dodgers as desperate to be able to give up on Teoscar Hernandez yet. I think they are much more likely to go ahead and bet on a bounce back for Teoscar Hernandez this upcoming season than to go out and trade for 2 of the outfielders that are going to be incredibly expensive.
There is no bounce back defensively for him, though. He's just a bad defensive outfielder,
True.
correct?
And the Dodgers knew that when they signed him, and that is why it was smart for the Dodgers to only sign Teoscar Hernandez to 3 years and not the 4 and 5 years that some of the Dodgers fans were suggesting when it became more of a question mark as to whether Teoscar Hernandez was going to rejoin the Dodgers last offseason.
So is Pages better in center or right field? Now, I get it. He's a good center fielder. He did a damn good job, better than I thought he would in center field. So we're not debating whether he's good in center because he is, period. In a discussion. He's a good defensive center fielder. But would he be a better right fielder?
He profiles better in right field.
Okay. Would Byron Buxton or would Jarren Duran be better in center field?
Probably. Byron Buxton is starting to get a little bit older. He's a little bit more injury prone, so I have question marks about that. Historically, he has been a better center fielder in the game of baseball. Jarren Duran had a really good season in center field. He's kind of transitioned because of Rafaela and Boston to a little bit more of the corners, but he has played a good center field in the past, similar to how Pages has played a good center field in 2025.
Okay, so I think we would both agree Andy Pages would be a significant upgrade to Teo Hernandez defensively in right field, right?
Oh, 100%, yes.
Byron Buxton would be an upgrade to Andy Pages in center field. Jarren Duran would be a significant upgrade to Andy Pages in center field, correct?
Byron Buxton would be an upgrade. Jarren Duran, I'd have to relook at the numbers to see if it would be significant or if it would be a push with Pages. But he would be a good center field.
Stephen Kwan, massive upgrade to Teo Hernandez in left field, which would be your option if you got a center fielder moved Pages to right field, right?
Yep.
So you're talking about two significant defensive upgrades at your corners spots, possibly a significant upgrade in center field. If not significant, definitely an upgrade in center field. So you're significantly upgrading 66% of your outfield. You're upgrading 100% of it. And if you add a Byron Buxton and then you move Andy Pages to right field, you might not be losing all that much power. So what is there not to like here?
The complicated factor is all those guys are on shorter term contracts. So you're talking about Byron Buxton's 3 years.
So money?
Stephen Kwan is 2 years. No, the complicated factor is not money. It's in order to be able to acquire all those guys. Guess what you're not going to have in a couple of years? You got to trade out all those outfield prospects that are part of the mix, which means the shorter term contracts that you're hoping to acquire in order to help bring in the next wave of Dodgers outfields, you're likely to dig into that, not just a little bit, significant, which means that the prospects of being able to add outfielders, young outfielders to the mix to be with the Dodger for the next decade or so, like Dodgers fans are hoping for a DePaula, for a Hope, for a George, for a Sirota, for a Gibbs, isn't going to be there if you go out and acquire multiple of those different guys, because you're going to have to dig into the prospect capital significantly. The Dodgers have a lot of depth in the outfield, but a lot of teams, if you are going to acquire both of those guys, two of those guys, that's going to be eaten up really quickly to where, man, why not sign a Kyle Tucker to a long-term deal if you're going to go ahead and eat into the prospect mix, because Kyle Tucker wouldn't be blocking prospects at that point.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you this question. I love these debates. These are so fun, by the way. What is the number one way to maximize your profit?
Is to win World Series.
Okay, so who gives a rat's ass who our outfielders are in high A baseball right now? If we win the next 2 out of 3 World Series, the next 3 out of 3, or 3 out of the next 5, we're going to be swimming in money so much, we're going to be able to go get whatever free agent we want anyways, and we don't even need the farm system other than to replenish maybe every now and then a marginalized spot. But in terms of upgrading with the all-star caliber player, as long as we're winning World Series and we're just swimming in money, what does it matter what we have in the farm?
Because there's a very big question mark of what is going to be out there on the free agency market to be able to add to the mix. And if you completely ignore the farm system or completely give up on the players while they are still young, that completely it boxes you in the moves that you're able to make. I think this is part of the things that we're starting to see.
But I'm not saying 10-year contracts. I'm saying Stephen Kwan's a 2-year contract, right? I mean,
yes,
you're not boxed into anything.
But
you go the trade route.
you are starting to be boxed in if you have to make moves by free agency. What this is assuming is that the Dodgers, with the prospect capital that they have, they trade all of that away, which means that the trade aspect is no longer an aspect that the Dodgers can really readily turn to. This is part of the problem with what the San Diego Padres
it's called the cliff. You fall off the cliff. That's what this is.
Yep,
yes.
You're starting to fall
That's
off.
That's what you're trying to avoid. I get it.
Yes, the San Diego Padres are starting to be boxed in the moves that they're trying to make because they have been able to, or have been trying to aggressively go all in for different types of players. They have used a large portion of their farm system and have signed players to longer term contracts. And what they have done is they boxed themselves in the moves that they can make to where they are limited both financially and with prospect capital at being able to fill in different holes. And if you box yourself in too much,
Understood.
You're going to fall off the cliff and you're not going to be competitive during a certain window. If the Dodgers go out and completely remove and trade off all the different aspects, not only are they not going to get younger, not only are they not going to add youth to this mix, which already is a concern because the Dodgers have long-term deals that are part of the roster, you're also not going to have the ability to be able to get younger because there's nobody coming up for the farm system, and you're not going to be able to trade for other guys, which means the only aspect that you can improve is with free agency, and you're only delaying it by signing free agents. Trying to delay when you're going to fall off the cliff.
Nobody is disputing the fact that you don't want to completely deplete your farm system for this or that. I think what people would dispute is to go get Steven Kwan and a Jarren Duran, that you actually are depleting the Dodgers farm system. The Dodgers easily, answer this question honestly, Austin.
Yep.
To go get Steven Kwan and Jarren Duran, do the Dodgers easily not have the prospect capital to where not only do they have the room in prospect capital to do that, but they have the buffer with guys that are duplicates? I mean, you have 8 guys that are going to be major league outfielders. So would you not agree that the Dodgers not only have the room in terms of prospect capital, but also the duplicity and the buffer to where you're going to replenish that outfield right away anyways, because you have enough guys as far as depth goes? Would you not agree with that?
Here's where I would, and I think you would actually agree with this because we had talked about this on one of the most recent shows that we did. How do we know that the Dodgers have 8 major league outfielders that are in the farm system right now?
Well, then that would suggest trade them. If you don't know that, and that's the case, then why hold on to them?
Here would be the argument that I would have. We do not know that the Los Angeles Dodgers have 8 major league outfielders that are part of the mix. We don't know if Jose DePaula is going to be a major league outfielder, or Zaire Hope is going to be a major league outfielder, or any one of these guys is going to be a major league outfielder. They certainly have as good of a chance of anybody because of the talent that they have, but we don't know if they're going to be part of the mix. And if it is true that the Dodgers need to continue to incorporate young talent as part of the mix, what you don't want to do is limit the number of options that you do have in the outfield on the farm system, so you don't have a bunch of guys flame out.
So how many would that be? How many would that be? How many would that be before we start limiting?
It depends on what is going to be limited as far as the development time that each one of these guys are
talking about right now. We're talking about getting Steven Kwan, Jarren Duran, Byron Buxton right now. How many would you have to give away before you started feeling like the outfield depth in the farm system, the elite outfield depth in the farm system is getting too limited? How many would you have to give away?
I don't know, because I don't know how many of these guys are actually going to pan out. Which means, and if you're talking about the success probability of prospects not only being able to reach the big leagues,
so you're telling me not to maximize the major league roster based on I don't know.
I'm trying to give you a reason about this, Casey. If you're talking about guys on the farm system, guys that are going to be able to not only be major league players, but also be successful major league players, you're talking about probably maybe a 5% chance at most. And if you're talking about 8 different guys, maybe having a 5% chance at making the big leagues, at being able to produce, I don't know which one of those guys is actually going to be. The Dodgers, with their development system, I believe have as good a chance to be able to make some of these guys big league players. And they certainly need some of these guys to be able to produce, to be able to add some youth. But I don't know which one of these guys is going to be part of the mix, which could be some of the reason of why you hold on to some of these guys. Not only do you not have to add them to the 40-man roster right now, but you also have the ability to be able to develop develop and be able to see which one of these guys you think has the best chance to be able to break out and be able to add to your mix. When we're talking about a Jarren Duran, when we're talking about a Steven Kwan, if you want to go ahead and acquire multiple of those guys, if we're just talking about the outfield mix, the guys, the core 8 or so guys that are closest to big league ready for the Dodgers. One, the Dodgers, if they have room in their system to be able to develop each one of these guys in the system, they don't have to move off of each one of these guys. But in order to acquire multiple of a Steven Kwan, Jarren Duran, Byron Buxton, you're probably talking about removing 5 of those guys at least from your system, which means you're down to maybe 3 of those guys. And if only 3 of those guys maybe have a 5% chance of going ahead and reaching the big leagues, it is very difficult to be able to see how you're going to be able to develop these outfielders, to be able to incorporate some of the youth roster into the mix, which means that it is difficult for the Dodgers to be able to say, hey, in a couple of years, we want to add an outfielder to the mix, because your pool of outfielders that are incredibly talented, that certainly have a good chance to be able to impact the big leagues, just isn't quite there, or at least there's a less of a percent chance that they're going to make an impact on the big league level, which means that if you wanted to acquire multiple of those guys, there is a very good likelihood that you are pretty significantly impacting the future outfield of the Los Angeles Dodgers, which you could see as a, hey, perhaps that could be a priority. But when the Dodgers have Andy Pages and Teoscar Hernandez, 2 guys that have been successful in the outfield going forward, adding multiple of a Byron Buxton, Steven Kwan, Jarren Duran through trade avenues, with that impacting the future financially, and with these guys only fitting into the window of the current window of the Dodgers, I just don't think it makes the most sense.
So let me ask you this then. You say that it has like a host way to pull a 5% chance. Is that what you're saying, to be as good as Steven Kwan at a major league level?
I don't know what that percentage is. I know I'm just talking about generic prospects.
Understood.
It is relatively small to be able to go ahead and do that.
So here is my pushback to that.
Yep.
That being the case, if there actually is that small of a percentage for these guys to hit, okay, then why would you take the chance of letting them develop not hitting like Diego Cartaya didn't, and then literally losing all their value for them whenever they don't? Why would you wait for them not to hit? That would be my question.
Because you have to have some of these guys hit in order to have sustainable success. Major League Baseball and the ability to have an offense that is able to sustain, for the Dodgers not to age out, which is part of my goal for the Dodgers, is to make sure that the roster does not age out. They have to, not a they should, not a maybe they can. They have to be able to have young talent be able to add to this mix. Perhaps other people could disagree, and you say you sign a free agent every single year and they are able to help fill into the mix. You don't really need the incorporation of young talent. I believe that the Dodgers, and this is perhaps this is a foolish philosophy that I have, they need to have young talent be part of the mix, which means that I want to give the Dodgers the best opportunity to be able to have that young talent enter the mix. And if the Dodgers are able to incorporate young talent to be able to help this roster, I think that they can have a sustainable window that does not just last the next 2 to 3 years. 2 to 3 years, if you went out and got Steven Kwan and a Jarren Duran and you traded away Teoscar Hernandez, sure, the next 2 to 3 years might be good, and you might have a little bit better chance to win the World Series than what you have right now on this roster. But I think that's going to significantly take away 3, 4, or 5 years down the window your ability to go out there and compete and win World Series championships, and make it to where, man, 12 to 13 year NL West titles, I want to make that 20, 30 year NL West titles that you can win in a row, because I think that gives you the best opportunity to maximize the number of championships that you win for the Dodgers, both now and in the long term.
Yeah, the free agent. The reason why the argument against the free agency is what you're seeing with Kyle Tucker. What was likely, what we thought all was going to be the roadblocks against an Edwin Diaz. You're going to have to sign a Kyle Tucker to a 10-year contract, a Juan Soto to an 11-year contract, and so the back end of those contracts aren't going to be. You're going to be paying way more than what you're getting from a production perspective, and so a team like the Dodgers, who swim in money, lose all of your flexibility. So whenever you say you have to get younger, that's what you're saying, is that if you don't have cheap contracts, if you don't have young players to deal for trade targets that give you the shorter term contracts to to go get guys that aren't 10 years but are great players, then you're going to end up with a bunch of Kyle Tucker contracts, which might be good for 3 or 4 years. But what about the last 6 of those years on his contract? And that's the only way the Dodgers could have a 5 to 10 year window where they actually do fall off the cliff. There is no doubt you're 100% correct on all of that. So I'm going to ask again, if you're not willing to go get in free agency, then you're also not willing to go trade for a Stephen Kwan or a Byron Buxton. How do you go get those type of players to maximize this window?
Who said I was against going out and acquiring Stephen Kwan or Byron Buxton? What I said is I am against acquiring both of them.
Okay.
So that was the argument that I had, is not don't get a Stephen Kwan, a Jarren Duran, a Byron Buxton, a Brendan Donovan. Absolutely acquire one of those guys because it helps your offense. What I am against is acquiring both of them, which was, I believe, the premise of the argument that we were having, is acquiring multiple of those guys, because I think acquiring multiple of those guys, there's a difference between having 6 of your outfield prospects and having 3 of your outfield prospects, and the expectation that some of those guys are going to be able to fit into the mix. So absolutely, I'm all for adding one of those guys, but multiple of them, I think, is going to eat too much into your system. And I think you can add one. And even if you do trade a Teoscar Hernandez, I think there could potentially be an avenue. Well, it probably wouldn't be the best offensive addition, but which you could look to maybe a little bit more of a defensive addition in a Harrison Bader, or maybe more a platoon guy and a Mike Yastrzemski, which I know is not a popular take, but could add one of those guys into the mix without completely depleting into the farm system, especially the young outfielders that are part of the mix that could help this big league club.
You're not against trading your prospects. You just think that's too much.
I'm not against trading my prospects. I'm not against over trading prospects for what could be a very minuscule difference between what Teoscar Hernandez is able to provide and sense. what some of the other guys are going to be able to bring in.
Yeah. But here's the other argument to that is, I think the trade capital would be, so what's the role for Justin Robleski, Jack Dreyer, Ben Kasparius, Kyle Hurt, Gavin Stone, River Ryan? All these guys that are major league level, what is their role right now? How is that efficient? How is their role going to be efficient based on how talented they are?
It is not efficient by the way that they are talented.
So all your capital is not going to be outfielders. I think you can hold on to probably 5 of those outfielders if you add the Kyle Hurts, the River, the guys who don't even have roles in the major league. They're just depth right now anyways, maybe even a Landon Knack, somebody like that. So what if I were to tell you can get those 2 guys, you only have to give up, say, 2 of the outfielders, plus maybe 3 or 4 of your major league ready pitchers. Would you be in that camp?
I would be slightly more. Some of the concern that you potentially have is the pitching depth for the Dodgers wears out incredibly quickly throughout the course of the season. And we've seen the Dodgers have injuries happen pretty quickly. And I think this is part of the strategy for the Dodgers. And it's not fair completely to each one of these guys, because most of the guys that are part of the Dodger system deserve major league opportunities. Yeah. And this is the incredible balance that the Dodgers, and of where I stand with the Dodgers, that I know Justin Robleski is a major league pitcher. Where he's actually going to stand, I don't know exactly. And that was part of the emphasis why I asked Fabian Ardaya, what is the role for Justin Robleski going into next season?
Hey, by the way, great job, Austin. That was a tremendous job you did on that interview. I mean, seriously, I wanted to say that out loud in front of everybody. Awesome job, dude.
I appreciate it. And you did a tremendous job with that and all the interviews that you're able to do.
I'm going to say it out loud. I hope this doesn't sound douchey. I was very proud of that interview. I thought that was a good interview. So there you go.
And I think it addressed a lot of the players, especially some of the players on the fringe, that the Dodgers are going to have important decisions of what they're going to have to do going forward. And some of the decisions that they're making with their roster going to impact pretty heavily. And one of those players is Justin Robleski. They're running out of time with Robo in his development.
That's my point.
They have this next year, and that's the last year for his development if he is going to be a starter. So absolutely, I could see him be entering into some trade conversations. He very well could be part of the mix. And it all depends on the players that you are doing and whether this is going to significantly deplete some of the depth that the Dodgers have pitching. What I don't want to do is the Dodgers to overcorrect in an area where they don't necessarily have to overcorrect and end up coming to bite them later, which could happen if you invest too much or trade too much of the outfielders, or if you trade too much of the pitching depth. I don't want to overcorrect or overdiagnose a problem that doesn't need to be diagnosed significantly.
Yeah. Just if there's anybody new out there, just trust me, Austin and I aren't mad. We do this all the freaking time. Austin is so smart, and then I have my side of it. And honestly, we don't get into these back and forths like this unless it's actually like genuine. We don't, like a lot of talk shows, they try to generate artificially like, I'm going to be on this side, you be on the. We don't do that. If we're on the same side, we just have a show to where we agree on everything. That happens all the time. So this literally doesn't happen unless I think one thing and Austin thinks the other, and we both present our case. And typically speaking, I lose, which I think what I did tonight, which I knew this was going to throw a wrinkle into things, is whenever I go get 2 outfielders, get rid of Teo, and he was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. The guardrails went up whenever I did that. And I knew that would happen. That was fun.
What is fun about this exercise and what we're able to do here, Dodgers Talks, part of the Dodgers Daily Network, is it's a intellectual battle. And what you saw demonstrated it was a intellectual battle of arguments. And I think that's what's most fun to be able to have, is not just a predetermined, I'm going to have this argument. It's I'm going to try to think through each one of these things to see if things make sense, which is what you saw with the Edwin Diaz argument. And perhaps Casey is right with this one, as he ended up being right with the Dodgers, although I was not expecting 3 years for Edwin Diaz. I'm much more on board with 3 years for Edwin Diaz.
Understood.
What I like is having discussions like arguments and having these arguments with rules in place, and with both of us being able to trust each other, that we can go ahead and have these arguments and be totally fine afterwards.
100%. Okay. So one last topic here. Tarik Skubal, okay? He is definitely not a need, okay? Yes. The Dodgers have, especially now that you have Jarren Duran, you don't need to send anybody down to the bullpen. It was not your starting rotation that damn near cost you the World Series last year. You fixed that problem. You proved. Now, saying that, hey, so-and-so didn't pitch well, like a Blake Snell didn't pitch well, that's not to say that you didn't solve your issues. That's just to say there was a game or two you didn't pitch well. Yep. And whenever you say overcorrect, that's what you mean. Don't take a Blake Snell who was awesome up until like one game and maybe didn't pitch well in a couple of games and then say, well, we need to go get a Tarik Skubal because Blake Snell didn't. That's an overcorrect, right? And so the starting rotation is fixed. Now, anybody would like to have – you always want more depth pitching. I understand that. We all understand that. But squarely, Tarik Skubal is not a need. He is squarely a want. So having said that, I will say this. He is so good that, it's kind of like you go buy that car and you say, well, I don't need this deluxe edition. I don't need the extra mats. I don't need the chrome bumpers. I don't need all this what is that cruise control that it automates it for yourself. It stops the car if you get too close to the car. I don't need all that crap, okay? And I just need a vehicle, right? But then they come back with a deal that is so good that you're like, damn, I can't turn that down. Okay, well, I'll go ahead and get that one. That's just too good of a deal for me to turn down. That's the only way the Dodgers and Tarik Skubal makes sense, is to where the Tigers just make an offer that is, or the Dodgers end up with an offer that is so good that they go, you know what, we're never going to be able to get another player of this caliber for that good of an offer. We just have to do it. That's the only way Tarik Skubal makes sense to me.
It is difficult, as you had mentioned, because this is not a need for the Los Angeles Dodgers. But boy, is Tarik Skubal a good pitcher. He is one of the best 2 to 3 pitchers in the game of baseball. That is how good Tarik Skubal actually is. Back-to-back American League Cy Young Award winners. He would absolutely be an upgrade over a couple of the guys in the Dodgers rotation. But the Dodgers rotation is as good as any rotation in the game of baseball. And 100%. Is that something that you want to go ahead and invest your capital in to be able to go out and get? Now, it's intriguing to be able to do that. And if it was something where the Dodgers were able to work out some sort of an extension with Tarik Skubal, I think I would be much more inclined to be able to do it. I just find it difficult to be able to see this being a thing that is able to work out. Although, if we're talking about teams that can make a deal like this work out, the Dodgers are one of the very few teams to be able to do so. And if we're talking about deals in the past with the Detroit Tigers. They're a little bit more of a difficult negotiation. They don't make quite as many moves during the course of the season, and it would be a big risk for Scott Harris, the president of baseball operations for the Tigers, to make this specific move to trade Tarik Skubal during a window of contention. If the Dodgers were able to do it, it's very likely going to cost you an Emmett Sheehan. Are you willing to have Tarik Skubal for 1 year and give up the next 5 years of an Emmett Sheehan plus a whole bunch of additional prospects that could limit some of the additional moves that you have? That's a question that you get to ask as a Dodgers fan, and that's a question that the Dodgers perhaps are asking if any of this discussion is taking place. It would take the correct circumstances for this deal to work out, but I'm not going to completely rule it out because Tarik Skubal is a phenomenal player, and the Dodgers seem to be pretty good at getting some of the best players in the game of baseball.
The Dodgers are so good. We have a wonderful, God dang, we have 236 people watching on TikTok. How about that?
That's good.
Absolutely. And they're a wonderful crowd on YouTube and X and Facebook. Just absolutely awesome. So Skubal makes sense under two conditions. Trade is contingent on extension. Yes, that's I think that's correct from Jay. AAV is within, say, 20% of Tyler Glasnow's salary at $32 million, so you can upgrade Glasnow and increase salary by $6 million. Do it. Yeah, so kind of the point there is whatever your terms may be, it has to be on your terms. Otherwise, you don't do the Tarik Skubal deal there. So This has been a whole lot of fun, Austin. I think we solved absolutely nothing. This is honestly, though, I'm not going to lie, though. This is why I'm able to keep my head. I can't tell you how many times I've been in these around the table in the coach's office, and you got your guy, you got your philosophy, you got your, hey, this is what we need to do, and you fight ferociously because you believe in it, right? Mm-hmm. If you didn't believe in it, you wouldn't do it. And then at the end of the day, hey, you walk out and you're all together and you're all a team, and you go and do what you're supposed to do. So wonderful show. Hey, it's been a heck of a lot of fun. So what are your final thoughts here on Dodgers Dawgs as part of the Dodgers Daily Network? It's been a lot of fun.
I think you just mentioned it right there, and this is something that we did with the Edwin Diaz conversation. You and I went back and forth pretty heavily with Edwin Diaz and talking whether or not that made the most sense for the Dodgers to be able to do, and we ultimately came to after the Dodgers signing Edwin Diaz, it was I'm kind of okay with that. Both you and I did, because I'm sure that was some of the exact same conversations that the Los Angeles Dodgers were having. And you know what? It kind of worked out because it was at least somewhat in a little bit of the middle of each one of our deals. Edwin Diaz, best closer in the game of baseball, guy that you had wanted. He signed with the Dodgers. That is great for the Dodgers because you got a phenomenal closer that's going to add to this bullpen and really help address weakness without giving up substantial years, which was my heavy concern with signing an Edwin Diaz. And we were able to have a good discussion back and forth about that, just like we're having had a really good discussion about the outfield target. You really pushed me to be able to think through a lot of the intellectual arguments, but not just for the sake of pushing me, because we want the Dodgers to be as good as they possibly can, and we're trying to think of all the different scenarios of how to make this Dodgers team as good as it possibly can, both now and in the long term. And I think we had a really good conversation about that. Some fun stuff still coming up for the Dodgers in the winter meetings. Never know what they're going to make. It sounded like from the conversation we had with Fabian Villa, which first, I can't say this enough, can't thank him enough for being able to take the time to be able to interview us, especially on the Monday of winter meetings. That means a ton to us here at Dodgers Dawgs, part of the Dodgers Daily Network. It sounded like could have been a little bit more quiet years-wise for the Dodgers, which means they are keeping an eye out all of these things. So I'll be curious to see what the next moves for the Dodgers is. Tomorrow, winter meetings, is the Rule 5 draft. I just want to address this quickly just because there could be some Dodgers that are taking in the Rule 5 draft tomorrow, some of the Dodgers prospects. If they are, I'm not mad about that. I'm actually celebrating 100%. That, because that is an opportunity for each one of those guys to go out and succeed at the major league level. So like what happened to Garrett McDaniels last year, he got his big league opportunity. I was super pumped for him, like we've seen with guys like a Ryan Noda and a Jose Hernandez and a lot of different guys with the Gus Varland and a lot of different guys with the Dodgers farm system. I hope this opportunity is able to come for some of the players within the Dodgers system. Rule 5 draft is happening tomorrow. Minor league portion of the Rule 5 draft is also happening tomorrow, so there will be some moving pieces within the Dodgers system. probably that will be taking place tomorrow. Yeah. Hopefully, it's not just that. Hopefully, we get to see more of the Dodgers being able to improve this club and going out there and trying to win their third straight World Series championship in 2026. The building blocks of building a dynasty continues this offseason.
All right, no filibusters. I'm going to put you on the line one last time. Take all of the financial situations, all the prospect, hey, the falling off the cliff 3 or 4 years from right now. Who is the best outfielder for the Dodgers?
Who is the best?
Offensively.
If you take away all of the financial things, if you take away...
And it can't be Kyle Tucker.
Okay.
I'm speaking out both sides of my mouth here.
Yeah, because it would be Kyle Tucker is what you would have right there. Honestly, it would... I'm debating between either Byron Buxton or Jarren Duran. Yeah, but I think, nice. I prefer fit-wise closer to a Jarren Duran or a Brendan Donovan.
Okay, fantastic, Austin. What an awesome job you did. That just incredible job as always, Austin. So, especially being able to handle my honorary side, my competitive side when it comes out. You do such a wonderful job with that. And then also, I'll say this, my last comment here, you can respond to this if you want. The Dodgers are incredible at playing their hand. I mean, they're incredible poker players. It's like, Oh, yeah, you know what? We're good. Hey, you know what? We think Tanner Scott's going to bounce back. We got all these guys. We're good, Edwin Diaz. You go. Hey, let's just go see what kind of bag you think. Go ahead and go get 1 more year somewhere else or 2 years somewhere else and finish 7th place, okay? Go ahead and do that, Edwin Diaz, if you want. Hey, great. We're fine. We'll move on right on without you. Boom. They signed Edwin Diaz, right?
Yep.
And so now that you have the momentum, I think you're going to see Andrew Friedman capitalize on that momentum like, hell yeah, we got momentum. We got to finish this deal now by and he even said it in the Kirsten Watson interview today, by substantially improving our offense in whichever way they see that being.
Yep, I think that's absolutely right. The Dodgers are going to make some decisions. We've seen the Dodgers and the aggressiveness of what they've had for the past couple of off seasons. Why would we expect that to stop now?
Yep, totally agree. Hey, this has been a great show. You wonderful Dodgers dogs out there are the absolute best. So cannot thank you enough, no doubt about it. I'm actually we debated about this. I released an interview today with Isaac Ayon. It was right when the signing was happening and got no. So I actually deleted the video. I'm going to re-release Isaac Ayon next week. I got Patrick Copen coming out on Friday, but I'm not going to release any of the other interviews with the players until next week, and we get some distance away from all this hot stove talk. 'Cause it's not fair to these interviews with the minor league guys. I mean, you're talking about a low A player at an interview with a low A player versus talking about going and getting Edwin Diaz. I mean, who in the hell? I mean, do you understand? Yeah. So it's just not fair to the time put in by the players and me and everybody else. So we're going to delay that until next week. We'll start releasing them. There'll be 1 a day. We've got about 14 or 15 of them. I put 2 more of them in the can today, so be looking for those. Will not happen until Friday. The next interview I'm going to release will be Patrick Copen on lunch on Friday. So you wonderful Dodgers dogs are the absolute best. Thank you so much for tuning in. And as always, it's a great day to be a Dodger.